Discovering Your Purpose, the Meaningful Work Transformation. I'm so excited to be with you today and ready to dive right in. Today we're going to talk about creating an income with your personal meaning and authenticity in the work that you do that connects to who you really are. If you're thinking about finding a new job, we're going to walk through how knowing your true self will help you align your work to suit you, make it easier to do the work you're good at, and grow your income quickly. I'm really excited to dive in and share with you what I've learned from both transforming my own life into work that is a situation where 90% of my work is within my strengths. It brings me energy, it matches my unique self, and I enjoy it. And also from the work I do with others in the last decade that have transformed their lives and their work into easy passion alignment to their own self. These are folks just like you who have changed their path by understanding and embracing their own passions and strengths. You're going to meet some of them today. You're going to see how they did this and how you can take the same journey they've been on to create your own successful, fulfilled work and life. 15 years ago, I was working really hard to be good at my job, to create value, to provide for my family. I believe in the principle of doing things I love, and I worked really intentionally on using my strengths at work. I read books and articles about finding my passion. I took a course on finding my unique abilities. I tried to fit my desires and my strengths into my work. I was thinking I would easily be able to shift into work that I really liked. But when I read books on passion, I couldn't figure out what I was passionate about. It was this elusive idea that felt like it should be more real. Like I couldn't quite make the connection to the work that I do and the idea of passion. I took this course on finding unique abilities with a coach in Canada, and I believe that we each have our own strengths, that I wanted to work in that space, and I knew I could apply them, and when I did, I shifted the work that I did, but it didn't feel fulfilling. I kept feeling like it wasn't just quite enough. I felt like there was this little bit that I couldn't quite figure out. And I tried really hard to understand my personality and understand who I am and how I work. I tried to fit that into my work. But the pressures of having to do what just had to get done and the conflict of that work just not really aligning to me was always this feeling of angst that I couldn't quite explain. But I kept at it. I read, I searched, I researched, I studied, I talked a lot about it, but I couldn't quite get the connection made internally. I was successful. Externally, it looked like everything was working, but it wasn't a true picture of what was really happening to me internally. I was unsatisfied and unfulfilled. I was tired. I spent a lot of years, money and energy, trying to make it work. And then I was even figuring it out. I was doing it well. It was okay. The work was even work I kind of liked. It was interesting. I was energized. I was committed to the principles of the organization, but I was stressed out and I wasn't quite just right. I was unsettled. For many years, I tried to make it all work. I spent a lot of time and energy shifting positions, changing the work that I did, but I just couldn't figure it out. And then one cold Friday afternoon, on a February day in 2009, I walked out of a meeting feeling dejected with this real weight of disappointment. I was so tired, and I got into my car that day thinking, what are you doing? It's one of those moments in your life that you just remember. Like everything hadn't felt right, and then all of a sudden, wham, you feel like, I should have figured this out, but I get it now. I don't know what it is, but I've got to do something different. I was so sad and disappointed, and I felt a little hopeless. And I remember thinking, you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. I was really tired of hearing myself even talk about the same situation over and over. I remember a lot about that day. I remember that weekend. I spent a lot of time pacing and praying and thinking. I paced my driveway. I paced around my yard. I paced the office. I thought a lot. I prayed a lot, and I remember thinking, okay, you can do something different. but I had no idea what that was. And was I really ready to give up security and success? Even just the security of having a job is important, right? I was going to give up supporting my family to do something I really wanted to do. That seemed pretty selfish. And I didn't even know what I wanted to do. That felt ominous. It felt big, but I didn't want to just go get another job and continue to feel this way. To find myself in this new situation, maybe feeling the same way. That just felt exhausting. But I wanted to make a significant change, and the idea of that change was scary. So something I read years ago kept coming back in my head as I was pacing. It was from a little book called Move My Cheese, and the phrase is, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Think about that. What would you do if you weren't afraid? I recognized that fear was stopping me, fear of failure, fear of letting people down at home, at work, fear of not making the mortgage, fear of being selfish, fear of dragging my family along a path that maybe they weren't ready for or that was different for them, and I couldn't even explain what it was that I wanted. Fear that I wouldn't be any happier in a new place. But I knew if I stayed, then I had to make a change, because like I said, I was really kind of tired of hearing myself talk about the same thing over and over, and I needed to be settled into the status quo and staying. It felt as though I was finally at a very personal decision point, a line in the sand or a fork in the road, and I needed to know that if I stuck, then I had to figure out how to stay and be okay. And that I knew I was capable enough to make a change. I knew that I was smart enough. I knew that I could do something different. I just didn't really know what that was. But when I looked the truth in the mirror that I could settle or do something different, I knew it was time to do something different. And I had to make a change, but I didn't know what to do or how to do it. That Sunday night, I printed that phrase out in big block letters and I tacked it above the computer in my office. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Honestly, that stayed there for years. And I thought about it a lot. What would you do if you weren't afraid?
So I'm guessing that you have explored the idea of working with your strengths or finding your passion or finding happiness at work, or you wouldn't be here with me today. So this is some interesting facts that I found as I have thought about the idea of how many people in the world are really using their strengths at work and what's the impact of that. So Gallup says that people that use their strengths every day are 6 times as likely to be engaged on the job. And to be engaged means that you're motivated and you're kind of all in and you're in alignment with the organization. And that's a significant idea if I think about when I'm not using my strengths and the times in my life when I have kind of worked against the grain a little bit, and that the impact of that on my engagement and how I feel at work. That makes sense to me. As well, Nielsen says that over 50% of employees are unhappy at work. I certainly believe that. Employees who say that they're often burned out or feel burnout at work are more than 60% are more likely to be sick. Over 23% or 23% are more likely to visit the emergency room. Over 2.5 times as likely to leave their job, and 13% less confident in their performance. That's fairly impactful, and I can relate to all of those things if I think back at times in my life when I have not felt real fulfillment and alignment at work and feel burnout. In the time of the pandemic that we're in, people are really rethinking their life path as well. Forbes says that this global event has helped people arrive at the conclusion that life's too short and shouldn't be wasted on a career in which they don't derive any internal intrinsic value, that deep down we know in our heart that we have to maximize our time here on earth and do something of substance and value. There's lots of articles out right now and research going on about the impact of this pandemic on our mindset. And mindset is really what I'm talking a lot about today, is this mindset that you have the ability to control your destination and change your path, that you don't have to stay where you're at or follow in what someone else says that you need to do, that you have choices. And that's really what I'm talking about, that idea today. So is that true for you? Maybe you want to create a life where you want to do more of the things that you love and you want to do something of value. That was a big driver for me. I knew of some of the things that I was good at doing, but I didn't have all the context that I have today, into which means how I applied those things that I was good at in different ways in the world to create value for me and value for others. I see a lot of that in the people that I talk with, and maybe you want to make a bigger impact in your work. What's missing for you? Think about that as we go through this next hour. What's missing in your life? The thing that working on our unique strengths and passions does is it gives us freedom. It gave me freedom and fulfillment and engaged energy and real happiness, and settled in to kind of, I think of it as kind of getting real comfortable in who I am and being able to work in that space of comfort, happiness, ease. I think we all crave that, but many people don't know how to achieve that. And here's the thing, you don't have to know what you want to do before you start that path to meaningful work. I've worked with people who didn't know what they wanted before they started. They just knew that something's missing. Some people just know they need something different and don't know what that is. Some of you have a hobby that you want to turn into a living, and you don't see a way to make that work, or a way that you can really make money at that. Or fears about, will success with this thing that I love to do as a hobby turn it into burnout or rote work that I'm not enjoying anymore? Or can I really make money at doing this? That just seems elusive. Some people found the work that brought them connection, but didn't know it when they started the journey. Certainly, as we take one step forward, we learn more and more. And it is a journey. It's not a destination or a quick cure. But your path is unique to you based on your experiences, your talents, your skills, all the things that you've done in your life that make up who you are. That's unique to you. And I really want to share this with you because these pictures are representative of many of the amazing men and women that I have worked with over a decade, I'd say near 2 decades, that have really transformed their work into joyful, meaningful, easy existence in many industries, in many ways. As I talk to lots of people who are in this process of working within their strengths, I wonder why we don't see it more often. It's easier said than done, though, right? It was far easier for me to talk about it long before I actually did something that made transformational change for me. And I don't always believe it's because we don't know what we're good at. I think that there are certainly people and situations where we don't see what our unique strengths are, and we don't see what we're really good at. And we'll talk about that a lot in the course. But I also think that some of you know what you're good at, but don't think there's real value in that. I think our superpowers, if you will, the things we're really good at, are the things we do effortlessly, that we do them almost reflexively without breathing. Reflexively like breathing. It's way too easy for us to apply the things that we're good at into our work. We're raised in a culture, I believe, where hard work equals success. That if it's too easy, we question that it could really be valuable. And we almost, especially in some industries, almost tout how hard we work as this badge of honor. I'm going to read a quote that I love, love, love. And when I heard it, it resonated with me. This was a quote by Marianne Williamson, and Nelson Mandela quoted it in his 94 inaugural speech. She says, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others." And that touched my soul when I read that the first time, and I really believe that to be true, and I've seen it prove out in my life, that I undervalued the things that I was really good at, and I worked really hard to identify my own voice and realize that I am unique and it's important and it's intentional, and you are unique and you are intentional, and the things that you do really well and the way that you think about information or make decisions or interact in the world are unique and they're powerful. And that really, when we live in that space and we live in the freedom of being who we are meant to be, we really connect and allow other people to do the same thing. And I have seen that over and over in my life. I've also worked with people who are so frustrated, who dread going to work, who come home feeling hopeless or frustrated or drained or exhausted or just seeking something they can't put their finger on. Sometimes when I ask the question, then why don't we change? It's because we don't know how. And I get that. If you've been thinking about this for a long time, I want you to know this is the place to be for the right conversation, because this is about how to create a real work experience that delivers freedom to you. That's all we want, right? Isn't that what we all want? And while we have that freedom, we also want to make an impact on the world. I want to make an impact on the people that I'm around. You might want to make a big impact on the world, or a small impact, or an impact on the people around you and that you connect with, or maybe you just want to feel peace in your life. But you are in the right place if you are looking for that freedom and to have the conversation in a place that's really encouraging, engaging, interactive, and safe. So here's what we're up to today. We've got two things we're going to really zone in on today. One is getting clear on the right mindset about your uniqueness so you can confidently get started on working and living in your passion and your strengths. The second is that I want to show you what you need to focus on to create a meaningful transformation that creates a life and income for your future, because that's really where the rubber meets the road. I can spend all day long doing things I love to do. That doesn't mean I can support myself or my family or make a living at it. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about through today and through the course. I've helped hundreds of people that are moving through their life with more direction, more intention, and look forward to sharing those stories with you today. I've created a course which I'll share with you today and at the end of the session. The biggest problem that people run into working in their passion is that they don't believe they can make money at doing what they love. I did it. I believe it's true. I know it's true. I've done it, and so can you. And I did it without any real guidance. So I'm going to share with you that it is possible, and many people do it very successfully. Creating a successful life, applying your strengths and talents, is all about doing what you know and getting paid to do it. We're going to talk about how to do that today. We've got a lot of ground to cover in this session today. So as you can tell, I'm going to go fast, and I'm going to go as far as I can in our time together. I'm going to walk you through how to get more clear about your strengths and what to think about that makes you unique. I know many of you have expressed interest in working with me to create a roadmap to new work and income, and you're ready to get it done. I'm going to talk about what that looks like for us to do that together at the end of the session today. I'm going to walk through the program and what it looks like to really dig deep into your unique traits, get really clear about your uniquenesses, your internal motivators, where you can make money applying those strengths and skills, how to be passionate about your work. What we're going to do today as we move through this experience is dive deep into what to think about now that you've decided to change your path to include work that brings fulfillment and meaning in your life. Because once you have that clarity, then you can move forward fast. So in our training today, I'm going to show you how to live this pattern of frustration, exhaustion, stress as you seek to work and live in meaningful work. I'll share the exact path I used to accomplish that transition. I'll tell you about the last day I came home from work feeling that way. That was well over a decade ago, and on that day, I made a decision to transform my life. I, however, didn't have a process outlined. I didn't know what to do to make that change, and I'm going to share with you how to do that today. I have watched so many people that I've worked with do the same thing. I will share with you today how to get clarity regardless of your situation and give you a roadmap if you want to do it on your own. But before you give up or decide to stay in the status quo, if your dream is to do something different and be different in that seamless, passionate way of working, give yourself one more chance and stay with me as we go through this for a few more minutes. The most rewarding thing is that I've watched people just like you do the same thing. Have that moment of looking at the phone or the computer going, everything just changed. And so the first place I want to start is that you can do this. It's doable. You can control the outcomes of your life. The key is that we really have to get in and figure out how to value your expertise. And we'll walk through how to do that. So let's start here. I want you to think about what's your biggest question about creating value from what you're really good at, your unique strengths, skills, and passions. Here's what we'll do with our time together today. So grab a pen. I'm going to walk you through the transformation system in less than an hour. I'm going to go as fast as I can through all 5 steps, which represent 5 weekly modules. And this is something you can implement right after we complete the call, and you'll generate a list of things to do and ways to use the tools that I'm going to give you at the end of this session. We'll dig really deep into step 2 in today, in fact. For those of you who would like to work directly with me and take specific action steps along a roadmap you create for living within your meaning and your passion while financially supporting your goals and dreams, I'm going to share this program that I'm starting at the end of the call today. So let me get started now. I'm going to really dig deep into 3 of the limiting beliefs I hear most frequently and how we'll address those in the course, because this is something you can implement right after we complete the webinar, honestly. Although I spent a lot of time chasing paths, if you're wanting to do this on your own, stick around. You'll get great tips, and I'll send you a download outline of the model at the end of the call. For those of you who would like to work directly with me, then at the end of this at the end of this hour, I will tell you how to join that program. So let's get started. The first thing I want to start with is, when you think about your life and freedom, working with ease and your unique strengths, experiencing passion and energy in your work, I want you to think about how this is going to change your life right now. I'm going to go quickly through this because I want you to see that how changing your life makes impact when you understand your uniqueness. So imagine this: if we're sitting here a year from now talking, what had to have happened for you to feel great about progress toward creating inner peace and satisfaction with yourself in your situation? You know why you joined this webinar. You only know what brought you to this place to have a conversation around how to transform your work into meaningfulness instead of just go find another job or stay in your status quo. But what happens a year from now, if we were sitting here? Will you be in the same situation, or will you have made changes? I told you how tired I was of hearing myself talk about the same thing over and over, complain about the same thing. Can you relate to that? 3 months after I changed my path, I realized I no longer had a headache. 3 months after I changed my path, I realized I no longer had a headache every day. I had lived with a daily headache for so long that I didn't even realize I had one. I didn't realize how my situation was affecting me mentally, emotionally, and physically. How do you feel right now? Tension, worry, angst, pain, just unease? You have power. You have the control to change your future so it looks different and you can feel different. Here's how you can quickly and easily transform your destination. The first place we'll start in my program is embracing our uniqueness. Here's what we'll do with our time together. I'm going to walk you through these 5 steps. And these we'll start with number 1. The first thing people believe about themselves is, I'm not that special. I'm not really that different from anyone else. I don't believe that I'm unique. Most of my life, I didn't believe I was special either, to be honest. So I get that. I totally understand the idea that I'm just normal I am what I am, but I'm not. But that does not equate to being special, especially when we spend our time thinking about our weaknesses. And I think today we frequently think more about our weaknesses than our strengths. I had a real aha moment one time in the idea of this idea that I'm not that special. I was leading a marketing team, and I was about to take two groups that had kind of formed together to be a marketing team that didn't always get along so well, and they had very different goals and intentions, and my effort was going to be to bring them to this high-performing, unified group going in one direction. We also were coming up on a year where we had big goals, big milestones, and they didn't know that yet. And I needed them to be really stretched in the next year for creativity and innovation and getting a lot of things done that were going to push them out of their comfort zone. So I felt that the best way to do that was to take them out of town. I took them to the lake for a 3-day retreat. We were going to do a combination of team building, getting to know each other, getting trust and collaboration, foundations kind of built, and creating an action plan for the next year with goals and milestones. I felt good about all of that. I felt really comfortable doing that and leading them. I had worked with them in some way or another for a long time, and I felt really confident about that. But what I was not, what I couldn't really get was how to send us off from the office to this 3-day retreat. I wanted them to kind of experience some send-off in this powerful, motivating, energizing way. And I didn't feel like I was that kind of raw type of gal. I don't jump up and down. I don't tend to just get all this high energy going. So I felt really insecure about that. So I asked somebody that I worked with to come in and talk to them for 5 minutes. I kind of gave him the talking points, the reasons we were going and what I wanted from him, and to help me just get them energized, because he was really good at motivating and energizing people. So we gathered together, and I felt like I was watching a car wreck about to happen, and I couldn't stop it, and I felt powerless in that very short 4 or 5 minutes, sitting in that conference room in our t-shirts and shorts and flip-flops, getting ready to leave. He was motivated by different things than I was motivated by. And although he may address the issues that I wanted, his motivating drivers were showing up in the conversation in a way that was not at all hitting the mark. And so I walked out of that place, and everyone walked out of there feeling a little dumbfounded and insecure, maybe. I spent the next 3 days convincing them they weren't going to lose their job, and that I really needed them to be innovative and creative and all those things that I just said that we were trying to accomplish. But it kind of scared them. And I remember as we walked out, pushing the big glass doors open to go get in my car and leave. I remember this light bulb moment of thinking, on my worst day, I could have done better than that. At my worst, I could have been more energizing and motivating than that. And on the drive to the lake that day, we had about a 2-hour drive, I thought a lot about what just happened and why did I get us to this place. And I got us there because I didn't feel unique enough. I didn't recognize my own strengths enough to have my own voice in the moment that I really needed to have my own voice. And it was a moment that was life-changing for me, because I led this team with motivation and energy. It wasn't what I emulated from someone else. That was a whole different kind of energizing, motivating method, but it was right for me. And my team had connected with that. I had connected to them. We had high trust and loyalty, and I blew it because I didn't listen. I didn't allow my own voice, my own self, my own personality and drivers and motivators to come out. And that really changed my life. I embraced and worked really hard at embracing who I am, what my core values are, and to live in that space with more strength. Let me tell you another story about someone I met. Her name was Nia, and she was a 20-something year old person who was an international student of mine, and she felt like the world kind of set her up with all these obstacles of going out and making a difference. She felt, and she said this very clearly, that she held 4 obstacles against her before, strikes against her was actually the terminology she used, before she ever went out into the world. She felt like she was a lesbian, and she was Black, and she was international, and she was a woman. And I was stunned to hear her talk at a fairly young age, really, in the grand scheme of your life, to have this formidable expectation that you have so much against you before you ever even get the opportunity to connect in the world around you. And so as she and I connected, we had real conversation about the idea that who we are is meaningful, that she didn't know anything really about me. I was an instructor. I was a faculty person for her. I was an academic advisor. I was Dr. Ogren. I had a long history. She knew my bio. I had a history of owning and selling businesses and leading organization as chief operating officer, and I had my PhD, and she saw me as this place that I was in this heartbeat, in this moment. And as I shared with her a little bit of my backstory and said, you really don't know anything about me, but I grew up in a really low income situation with a single mother. And I stood in the free lunch line at school, mortified I was in the free lunch line once I realized what that meant. And my dad left when I was 1. And I have seen abuse in my home. And nobody helped me as I went out of high school as a really pretty strong student. Nobody helped me know what my path options were. Nobody helped me realize that between income and grades, I could have gone to any school in the country that I chose to go to college, and no one helped me know any of that. I took a few classes at community college, and I worked at my high school school job, and my life progressed because of choices I made along the way. And as I connected with her about us emulating other people without recognizing that who we are is valuable, it was very eye-opening to her. She said a couple things to me. I recognized that my language and how is important, because the words I say are reflective of what I think, and then what I think is what I do. And that cycle of self-talk and belief can stop us, or it can give us power if we allow it. And I said, Nia, you will connect with people in the world that I could never connect with because of who you are, because of those 4 attributes that I think of as attributes that lend to your power. If you use them in that way, and you embrace that uniqueness about you and who you are, you can be powerful in a way that I can never connect to those people in the same way. And that's an example of how I really believe our uniqueness is intentional. And I believe that what is right for me, my voice is, when I say my voice, it's everything that comes together to make up who I am, is powerful and intentional and important. And there's a place for you in the world, that you, as you leave today and think about your soul fulfillment, what really drives you and who are you, what is your voice? What are you? What's your meaning in the world? What fulfills your soul and helps you be unique? But know that your voice is real. It's right for you, and it's intentional. I don't believe it's an accident. The way that you connect with people, the way that you're skilled and passionate, is unique to you, and there's a place in the world for it. It's not an accident, and it can bring value to you, and that's exactly what this course is about. The second limiting belief that people talk about to me is regarding their ability to make money doing what they're really good at. I like doing something, but I don't know how to make money at it. It might be a hobby, but I don't see it as a career, or I don't see how it would be possible to make money at this thing, but and I don't know anyone else that does, or I see that a lot of other people do, and I'm not sure there's space for me in that market. What's fascinating, if you think about it, is the reality that you're already providing value to someone because of who you are. The value might not be money, it might be, but it might be something else. But there are also people in the world paying for value you can bring to them. They're paying someone else. I'll take you through one of the steps we go through. This is a process to find where you provide value, and I'll help you find more avenues for that. I've coached a lot of people about business ideas and startups over the years, and in addition to creating business strategy and business plans, marketing efforts, analyzing their market, or looking at their products, I always work with them on aligning their life to their business vision and vice versa. Because especially when you're an entrepreneur, you want to do something that is kind of your own business idea. You can't just quit when the business takes over your life and you're not in alignment. So it's really important to make sure that your personal values and style drive the business as well. So let me tell you about Erin. Erin is an artist who I worked with who wasn't sure that she could turn this love of art, and she was really good at it, really creative and innovative, but didn't see how she could really turn that into something that was a sustainable living. She could sell a few pieces, and she had sold a few pieces, but she didn't see how to make that bigger than that. And she really wanted to, but was not seeing it. So she shared with me a couple of beliefs as we sat down together. She couldn't quite see how to learn a living. Making what she wanted to do was consignment and real creative pieces for, commissional pieces for people. But she didn't know how to make a living, didn't see how to make a living at that from the amount of work it took to get a commissioned project. And two, she didn't want to ruin her love of turning this hobby into this boring routine business. She didn't want to I see sometimes artists feel like they almost will bastardize their creative soul in order to sell this thing that they've created from their own kind of vision and person. And she didn't want to make the same thing over and over. That was a third issue she had. She didn't want to just make the same thing over and over. So we sat down and we worked on it from a couple of different angles. And that will be a part of one of the modules that we work on in this course. But I said, well, let's start with what do you have to live on? So we did a very basic budget, and the kind of minimum she could handle living on. And then we did this, well, what if you really want to live in a financial space that makes you feel really good about that? What's that look like? So we did these two budgets, and then we said, okay, so if you sold these routine pieces that people keep asking you for, because she was kind of getting some interest in them and was getting a little tired of making them. I said, well, how many of those would you have to make this worst case budget, like your minimum situation? So we kind of did some playing around and say, ballparked it and said, can you make your rent by making those pieces, or a couple different pieces, or what do you have to do to make this, really work? And then do you have time left to do these commissioned to seek commission work and do that kind of creative work? She ended up walking away, giving it a shot, and now years later she has turned her life into this business of providing art. And she's even taken that routine object. It was a mug. She was a potter, by the way. She took that routine mug that she was making over and over, and now she takes special orders. So she creates personalized images and words and makes them very personal color, and has this format for making them unique in a way that allows her creativeness, but that to really kind of pay the rent, if you will, do the base financial needs she needs to do, and then she can do this other cool stuff in her, and she's figured out a way to make that work and to do other things that help connect to her kind of core values, like having women from a halfway house come in and do pottery through a therapeutic program that they're in. So She's been very successful in several ways, making a lifestyle that she loves, living where she wants to live, selling items that she can embrace in a way that connects to her core values, her personality, and her strengths. She's been really fun to watch as her business has grown over the years. But she started seeing the path, and where she ended on the path was not where she started the day she drove away. She drove away thinking, I think I can make this work, and I can allow some flexibility and freedom in that, and figured out how to get someone else to pay her for those things that she was seeing. My personal goal is to spend 90% of my work life doing the things I love to do, and 10% on doing the other stuff that I'm not really loving or I just don't really want to do. That's my goal, and it didn't happen overnight, but it happened pretty quickly because I was very intentional on figuring out how to do that. But I'm doing that today. I live in a way that I really enjoy. I'm pickier about the things I choose to do for work, and I choose more wisely the things that I really love to do and that connect with my kind of soul and who I am. The things that I'm good at and that I want to do are the things that I do, and that drives my passion and connects with my core values. In Module 5, we'll go through a method of identifying those places of value, what you need in order to create real value going forward. We'll work on this tactical path with resources I'll give you and a tool to kind of fill in the blank to find those opportunities and possibilities. You can make money doing what you're good at and love to do. Someone is paying someone else for that skill, and it could be you. It should be you. So the third belief people have is this one. I have too many obligations to selfishly make a life change at this point. It's selfish. It's dangerous to just quit my job and go do something else that I want to do. I have busy kids, I have mortgages, or I've built a life with a certain trajectory. These obligations and financial obligations can't be ignored. I completely relate to this. The day that I drove away from that February meeting that weekend, I spent thinking, oh my goodness, I can't just keep coming home feeling this way. But what am I doing? But man, this was tough. This was a real struggle for me because my mindset was that I'm afraid to even think about what I could do differently because of what I have created that I need to support. I was the major breadwinner in my family. I had a super mom syndrome going on. I was not willing to make my family suffer financially for me to change paths. I knew this job. I knew this career field. I knew this industry. I had been successful. So part of me just wanted to shut the door on what I was thinking. I'm not going to drag everyone through this. And that was a real struggle for me. Because that's just what my reality was. So in Module 5, we're going to talk about the possibilities, the roadblocks, and the obstacles. That's when we start talking about how do you take your unique person into your life and career and make a difference financially and in the work that you do from a meaningful standpoint. It's difficult for people to dream because these obligations are in the way. We can't just start with the obligation because that's what shuts us down from really being free to explore our destiny and our possibilities. When we start with what we have to do, we don't have space in the bucket for the things we want to do because they're so overwhelming, and it's scary and it can feel overwhelming, right? What is fascinating to me is what I just did naturally that week. I don't know why I did it, but it worked. And it's what I've incorporated into conversations with all the people that I've worked with. And I say this over and over again. It wasn't my natural tendency to set obligations and responsibilities aside, even long enough for me to think about what I wanted. In Module 1, we'll talk about freeing your mind to the possibilities. We'll get really clear about those things we can't let go of. We'll fill out a worksheet, some templates, use a tool, write them all down, answer questions about them, and then we'll set them aside for the moment. I happen to have put my list in a drawer and shut the drawer. It was a kind of a metaphor for sit over here. I'm going to come back to you and I'm going to visit you, but right now I need to think differently. I'm not irresponsible. I'm not going to drop the ball on my family or my responsibilities, but I'm going to sit them over here for now. Because until I did that, I wasn't free to envision the life I wanted, the life I'm really meant to believe, to live. And I think that I see that over and over with people. They're not even allowing themselves to open their ideas, their mind to the ideas of what they could do because of all the things they have to do. And then in Module 5, we're going to come back and we'll revisit that list. We'll come back over here and we'll say, okay, all right. So here's who I am. Here's what my passions and strengths. And I've created a unique purpose statement now that really is concise and identifies who I am and what my voice and my mission in life is and where I'm best at. And then we'll take this list of things and we'll kind of marry them up and we'll say, okay, so let's start kind of picking and choosing and how does money play into this and the contribution I need to make to my family. And I don't really want to live personally. I didn't want to live in a worst case budget. I had a plan and I ended up with a plan that was more financially than that. But I've converted the things that I did in that process into tools and templates, video lessons and worksheets for you, so you leave with very tangible, actionable results. So you can see it's easy to implement in the idea that I've given you a path and I've given you a step-by-step process and I bring you along the journey and how quickly you can get amazing results when you actually have a roadmap. Then in Module 5, we'll explore careers. We'll explore work options through resources I provide. Honestly, I struggled to see what my options were. I knew I wanted to do something different, and I knew I started out on the path to identify what I was good at and my strengths. But I'd been in one place for a really long time. I talked with people that knew me from all walks of life, and those conversations led me to ultimately to teaching a college course and doing consulting projects. I fell in love with teaching immediately, and I never, ever saw that in my future. I did some consulting projects I really loved and some that were really rough to get through, but it led me to realizing the work that I wanted to do that fit my personality, that aligned to my core values, that brought me passion and energy, and I applied my strengths and skills. And I started picking and choosing. And when I allowed myself the freedom to dream first, opportunities then opened up. I've done things in my life and my career that I never saw in my future. What's interesting, and I want you to remember this, they were always there. Those opportunities were always there. I just didn't know how to really look for them. So we're going to walk through how to identify the core values in your life and why in week 2. We focus on your internal drivers and motivators. By understanding those core values, you understand what's really important at your core, and you will recognize why you feel unsettled or misaligned. This is the key to why we feel unease in situations most frequently. Core values are things that we cannot see. We see the things people do. We see our behaviors, our words, our actions. We see decisions that people make. We don't see the internal motivators behind those behaviors or words, actions, decisions. We assume or we presume, but we don't really ever see the motivations behind someone's choices. Those are driven, those behaviors, external visuals that we see or hear, they're driven by these underlying motivators as to why we do things. And that knowledge about what's underlying motivation is really key to understanding ourselves really well, because what happens is that we when we bring to our consciousness this reality of of the existence of values in our life, then we use those to make guiding decisions, or we use them to guide the decisions that we make. And so what happens is we find ourselves sometimes in these really unhappy situations and we can't figure out why. Ever feel like everything should be right? It's everything on the surface should be a good fit, whether it's a job or a relationship or a scenario, a situation, a decision we've made, and yet something's not gelling. Something's not right. I just can't put my finger on it, but my gut tells me something's not right. I've had situations like that in my life, so that makes sense to me. So I'm hoping that you can identify, as I talk about this, that same kind of decision or behavior or feeling you're getting when you make decisions and behaviors or have situations. So when you have that unease about something you've done or said, or what happens is, what's happening in that moment is that there's a misalignment to some core value that you have. And there are many core values, or values, sorry. There are many values that we have. I could list 10 or 15 values that are important to me, my family and my faith, my having fun, independence and freedom, wisdom and growth and knowledge, success. But what we see is that there's about 5, and no more than that for sure, core values that when we boil down what's really important to us at our kind of soul level, there are about 5 core values. So we talk about this deep in Module 2 in the course, but I want you to just think about one value that shows up in your life right now. It doesn't matter whether it's a core value or it's really important, but I want you to pick one. And then I'm going to ask you a couple questions about it, and I'm going to demonstrate how they show up in your life and why it is so important as one of these 5 elements, and why it's one of the things that are missing frequently from the conversation when we're trying to read about passions or discover our purpose or identify our strengths or understand who we are. That whole kind of purpose-filled, passion-filled research you might do is often missing this element, and I go deep into it in Module 2 and the course, and then we carry it throughout. So let me give you an example. I'm going to use independence as an example. Independence is a core value for me. It shows up in my life in a lot of ways. I crave the ability to control what I do when I do it. And I lived within a work structure for a long time where that was not totally up to me. I still had some freedom, so I worked in an organization that allowed some of that, and I took advantage of some of that, but I felt a real misalignment, and this really showed up after I left the organization, and I really learned about core values and really got deep within myself to realize this is a driving motivator in my life. Now, here's how it shows up. When I decided I was going to teach college full-time a few years ago, I applied at many schools all over the country. I was open to the idea of moving and pretty open to what kind of school I taught at, although private schools, liberal arts type schools, smaller schools is really my sweet spot. I interviewed for a college that was such an awesome fit. I felt like the curriculum was a fit. The many things they said about business professors connecting to their outside consulting work all was a good fit. Where it was an area of the country I love and could see myself living. And then the dean in an interview told me that he had a couple of things that were really important to him. And those were that on each day of the week, students and faculty wore a certain type of clothing on that particular day. And while there was nothing wrong with that, it was very kind of dictated. Business professional one day, school attire one day, dress I want to say business professional, business dress down, like business casual one day, and then maybe jeans one day. I can't really remember specifically, but it was very specific when he gave it, and it raised the hairs on the back of my neck, if you know what I mean. It gave me this feeling of, I need to think about this for a minute. And then he also went on to kind of outline some other constraints around the job as far as reporting to him about what I was doing specifically in every class. And when I stepped back and really, I could have easily taken that job because there were so many things about it I liked, and the pros outweighed a couple of these cons. I can wear, in principle, I can wear what you want me to wear to work. I'm not opposed to that, right? But when I measured against the value of independence and freedom, the idea that I will bristle against that, I had a real worried feeling in my gut. I didn't take that job. I ended up at a school that's a better fit and really love being at. So that's a way that it shows up in your life, either good or bad. You can make a decision in alignment with that core value that's incredible and provides real value, or you don't make a decision in alignment with that value, and then it's painful, and maybe we've invested a lot and have to stick. So that's how it shows up. So as far as triggers that we experience when someone disrespects it, that's another thing that is a really good question to ask yourself. And as you think about that value that I asked you to kind of look at on the list, what happens is that I have an emotional response that's more strong than at other times. So I'm going to give a different example. Accountability is a core value for me. Right or wrong, it is core. If someone says they're going to do something, I expect them to do it. If I say I'm going to do something, I expect I hold myself to kind of a bar of making sure I do what I said I was going to do. It's pretty core. It's been that way most of my life, and I know where it came from, and I know it's important, and it shows up a lot. It showed up with my children. It showed up with close relationships in my life. It shows up in with my students when I teach full classes, and I have both empathy and accountability in this situation, and I say I would give points deduction for late work and in the syllabi, and as soon as a student would turn in late work, I would feel myself getting so mad. Now, logically, it wasn't fair. It was my rule. I said they were willing to take the lost points, but now I had to do all this extra work to find it, and I was so mad about it. It took me, when I finally realized the reason I was mad was because it relates to this core principle of accountability for me. The idea that I do what I'm supposed to do when I'm supposed to get it done, and I want you to get it done when you said when you're supposed to get it done. And when you don't, it creates more work for me. I ended up changing that policy to no late work with specific exceptions. And what it did was take the weight off of me of allowing something that was going to be this rub in my life, because I would really feel this emotional intensity during those times. So it's a trigger that shows up. Now, when I know I'm feeling that same feeling about in another area of my life, I can manage it. I can process through, is this worth the intense feeling you're feeling? Or is there something here that I really need to kind of dig deep and process about the experience or the relationship or the situation? So that's how values show up. It's a short little example of what we'll do in a much longer context of the weekly module that you'll be in. But honestly, it's not a long process. It's a pretty simple, powerful exercise that I'll walk you through in the idea of understanding what your core values are and then aligning your life to that, because it's so important that it comes back to this idea of what is my definition of success. It's not the same as your definition of success, right? Mine is that I wanted to serve more people. I want to help people grow. I want them to help them be better tomorrow than they were yesterday. I help people meet their potential, whether it's in their personal life or in their businesses. I needed to find work that was making an impact. That was very important to me. And at the same time, I wanted to fully enjoy the moments of life that were kind of passing by. And independence and the idea of freedom and craving my own owning my own schedule was just a craving for me in my own time. So today I work a lot. I'm always seeking new opportunities. I do it now with very intentional focus in accordance to my strengths and my values, and I do it on my terms. These are a few pictures from around the world and with a few of the people that I've impacted and who have impacted me in the idea of passion and striving toward their own purpose. There have been several moments in my life where I felt overwhelming gratitude, many moments, but I'm sharing a few here. As an example, I was on a 2-week motorcycle ride wandering the Midwest, and I had to do some work on that kind of 2-week wandering trip that I was on, but I held a conference call online on my iPad and headset in the Blue Ridge Mountains at a picnic table, and felt real gratitude to myself for creating a life that fit me and that aligned with the values that I needed to express in the world. I spent part of that week visiting employees that lived around the country. It was an incredible experience for both me and for them, and was really grateful for that kind of new space in my life. Another time was when I found myself in Spain teaching a class of young women. I got the joy of doing that with my son. We taught a class together. He happened to be living there for a year, finishing, getting a second our master's degree in architectural design, and that's the picture of the group with the sand castle they built we saw. They didn't build it. We came across it in a tour we were doing. And so just some of the things I've got to do because I, in connection specifically to this transformed life I've created for myself, but also connected to the values that are core to me, and I recognize and I use them as I make decisions about and choices. So we're all different. This is a takeaway. For me, this is a sign in my office that says she created a life she loved. I believe that's intentional. I did it step by step to fit who I am, what I'm good at, what I'm energized by, and it aligns to my core values. If I can do it, you can do it. It changed everything in my life.
So what I want you to know now is that you don't have to know what you want to get started. I didn't know what I wanted. Vision was elusive. I couldn't figure out what I was passionate about. And that's exactly why I tracked my path and developed this course for you. So you can walk the path with a proven method that works. So again, your download is coming to you, so you'll be able to continue that process. I've been leading this program for over a decade and worked with hundreds of people to transform their destiny to align to their unique self. People that I've worked with come from all industries, all cultures, all niches, all ages, all genders. So now I want to introduce you to the 5 weeks in my Meaningful Work Transformation Bootcamp. We go deep into how to put this into action with all the tools, checklists, templates, all the work, and the resources you need to go fast. I'm about to walk you through all of that content and resources included in this program. If you're planning on trying to do this on your own, you're welcome to stay with me. You'll find value in seeing what you'll need to create to implement on your own. So let's get started. Because it's not just about being self-aware, it's about how you do what you do with that information and knowledge and how you set yourself up for success. That's what we're going to do together. So at a glance, this is what this experience is all about. We have 5 weekly modules. Each are video-based modules that are coming to you. They'll be released each week. Plus, we have live Q&A calls 1 time a month, and I'll talk a bit more about what that looks like in a minute. We have a private Facebook group that comes together, and you have lifetime access to that group where people are coming in, sharing ideas, getting accountability partners, growing together. If you choose, that's available to you. Not everyone wants to access that, but many do. you'll have templates and tools, everything you need. I get the question a lot, if I can move at my own pace. Yes, you can. Absolutely. And if you have a question along the way, I'll give you feedback. I will answer everyone's questions on the live Q&A call. So all you have to do is send them to me, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. Everything I'm about to share with you can be found at the link on the button that you see on the screen. So all the information about the program is there. You can see I'm going to walk you through now that same information so you can see everything involved in the course. For those of you that want to work directly with me in this process, I'll kind of show you step by step how it works. So the first thing we'll do in Module 1 is to identify those obstacles and achieve a mindset of growth without roadblocks. Then we'll talk about personality. I'll give you a personality assessment tool with lots of resources to connect and to really understand yourself. Where do you work best? When do you work best? How do you best connect with other people? How do you interact with the world? The biggest mistake that I see people make is only to use their own self-knowledge and not to use any kind of assessment or tool, because those really give us an unbiased view of ourselves, proven by research. So within Module 1, you'll actually receive a full assessment report from me that includes information on how you naturally may work, the things that identify how you identify things that are strengths for you and how you struggle, where you have stress, how you deal with conflict, etc. And then we'll move on to Module 2, where we'll talk about core values, and I'll talk about those internal drivers that I spoke about, understanding how they work within your life. What are they? How they show up? Because some of you might be really clear about your values, but some have never really thought about it before. Some have a perception of what our values are based on what we've been told by influential people in our lives. They change over time and they're personal. And I will give you a process to work through identifying not only what your core values are, but to kind of test yourself and see how they show up in your life by decisions you make or actions you take, and what the triggers are that you experience in your life. Based on your values, and how when somebody disrespects a value, there's this rub that we feel. So I'll walk you through that process so you can articulate and get really clear about your drivers and what motivates you for future decisions to be in alignment. In Module 3, we'll go on and we'll talk about our passions. What are your passions, your strengths, your skills? How are they different? What are those 3 things? We'll identify the sweet spot, how they kind of overlap, and identify the sweet spot of areas where they overlapped, and you're able to see the things that connect in all 3 areas for you. I'll give you tools. I'll give you some fun tools in this module, as well as some kind of deep, thoughtful templates to work through. This tends to be really eye-opening for people. I hear things like, I never thought about that because X, and remember that I never thought about, I couldn't identify what my passions were. So, but I sure know what they are now. So this module will help you identify those areas. In Module 4, we bring it all together. We'll use a funnel to filter down all this information that you've gathered about yourself and look at how they all come together into a unique purpose statement. Because when we can bring it into a concise statement, then we can articulate it to others. And then in Module 5, we'll talk about the career and roadmap. How can you make money doing the things that you're great at? I'll give you some tools and resources around how to make money at those things. I'll provide resources to explore ideas of career types that you might not have thought of. You'll also get a real benefit from these takeaway tools in your life. They're very actionable. So that's the path we'll go through in the course modules. The downloadable roadmap will be delivered today to you through the email that you provided. And because I really want to equip you with everything you need to be successful, I'm including today bonus tools on how to overcome fear of change. 3 tools. One is a tool to help you overcome the fear of change. to leverage the power of your unique purpose. Remember that phrase that changed my mindset? What would you do if you weren't afraid? This model is built around that idea that you will identify obstacles and recognize common fears that people have, some of which we've talked about today and more. For the first 50 people that register, I'll provide you the 5-step revenue planner. This downloadable planner is a tool developed to aid in simple budgeting. The simple template focuses you on how to identify the revenue that you need in order to meet the obligations you have, from worst case, minimalist, and best case scenarios. And then for the first 25 that register, I'll provide one live group Q&A call with me one time during the course. That's a monthly call. You'll be able to ask me questions directly and get insights into questions that you have as you work through this 5-week course. Here's a recap of what's included in all the modules and weekly releases that I just talked about. 5 weekly modules, over a dozen worksheets, tools, and templates to make your transformation easier. Your bonus module on overcoming fear of change, your 5-step revenue planner, live Q&A call to get feedback and personal questions answered, and lifetime access to the private Facebook group. So come along with me on this journey. If you want to work with me for the next 5 weeks, stop the status quo and transform your life, go to the link provided and you'll see payment options, registration. After that, you'll immediately receive an email from me with login instructions to the course. We've spent about an hour together. I appreciate you giving me that time. Hopefully you've gained something today. My real hope is that you walk away today with knowledge and awareness and an eye-opening experience. Watch for that downloadable roadmap that will help you along the path if you decide to work on your own, and if you decide to work with me. I look so forward to connecting with you soon. Thank you, and you have a great day.